Construction. It's the thing that has made us what we are. Without construction, I wouldn't be here because there'd be no office for me to be broadcasting from. Our houses. And as we know, the urbanization of the planet continues very, very fast. Big cities are getting bigger and bigger. And also, there's more construction going on in terms of what we need for net zero. Wind turbine farms, nuclear plants, all of this stuff. So much is going on. But what about the carbon footprint of construction itself? It's one of those things that has become more and more important as time has gone on. So that's what I want to try and find out today. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Matt Skolberg, who's head of technology at Volvo Construction Equipment, which is a massive maker of things like diggers and excavators and stuff. Matt, hello.
Hello, nice to be here.
I feel like as we're sort of, in that kind of European thing, I'm wondering what the weather's like in Sweden because we finally got some sunshine here in London.
Yeah, it's sunshine here as well today. A bit cold though, but it looks beautiful from indoor. So it's nice. It's nice.
People know Volvo, right? People, Volvo, renowned for cars and safety. It's one of those brands that's, lots of adverts talking about how Volvo is electrifying in it comes to cars. But you run, or you're part of a division about sort of construction equipment. And I don't think most people I hadn't heard of this. So what sort of things has Volvo got? What do you make? And how long have you been in the construction business?
We have been in construction business for a very long time. I mean, it's almost 200 years.
Wow.
Actually. So it's been before Volvo. Then Volvo bought a company out of Eskilstuna, and from there so our part of the Volvo group is very old. So we have been in this industry for very long. And then what we do is, as you said, excavators, wheel loaders, articulated haulers, and these kind of products.
So these are the things that would be digging a site at the beginning and moving soil, that sort of stuff.
Yes, exactly. I mean, both. I mean, in as you mentioned, in the urban environment, but also in quarries and mines and so on. So it's a broad range in different sizes of excavators, wheel loaders, and so on.
Okay, I won't say it, but obviously most people think of a certain brand which starts with a J, ends with a B, and that's the bulldozer. And when we see that, so how big are your machines in the markets? What sort of share of the market, and where do you operate?
We operate globally, and of course our shares are a bit different in different regions. But Europe is our main market. But we are a true global company. From a share point of view, we are among the biggest in the industry. So it's with this global approach to it, of course, and in the segments we are working on.
Yeah. So let's talk about these machines. I think most people can imagine them, and we can see them. And generally, I suppose the truth is they've all been powered by diesel, haven't they? And they chug out the fumes. So when did you, as a company, start to look at different ways of powering these machines?
We have done that for quite some while. I mean, starting out from highway, investigating hybrids and so on, using electric as a combination with diesel then. Pure electric machines we launched a couple of years ago, 2019, together with the trend overall then going in that direction then. But even though, I mean, we have all the time been very focused on the sustainable and the emissions from our machines with fuel consumption, for example, has been high on our agenda for a very long time.
So, I mean, I think you said just before we recorded, construction is how much of the percentage of global emissions comes from construction?
1% globally of all the CO2 emission globally coming from construction equipment. So it's a big part.
Yeah, 1% of global emissions is a lot. Now, I know you don't know the specific tons of CO2 you're producing, but obviously you must have quite a lot of diesel still going. So before we talk about what you're doing with the new technologies, are you trying to sort of phase out that diesel or clean it up, or what are you doing with those machines?
Yes, it's definitely. I mean, we should be net zero. I mean, from a CO2 emission by 2040, committed to the science-based targets.
Uh-huh.
The larger machine there is, the more they emit. So it's important to find solutions that fit for all these sizes. Where alternative fuels, of course, and hydrogen is maybe also solutions to look into here. I mean, especially regarding the larger machines, where it might be tricky to go battery electric immediately, where maybe that fits better for the smaller ones. But also pure grid connected excavators and so on is important solutions to replacing the diesel then, but also utilizing hydrogen in combustion engines. So the technology as such will probably survive, but it's different energy sources we're looking into that.
So do you know what percentage of your fleet has become alternative fuel?
So far, it's quite limited. We are producing, especially the smaller ones. I mean, and of course, it's getting more and more for every year. But so far, it's very minor, we can say, from a volume perspective. But as we are introducing more and more machines now, especially larger machines, starting in the small end and go up, so to speak, then we expect it, of course, to be more. And we aim for 35% electric by 2030. And we definitely think that's reachable.
So you're looking to electrify a third of all the vehicles you have by the end of the decade. One of the things that I suppose people will ask is, this is the big debate about batteries. The bigger the thing, the harder it is to power it. And the more energy the battery uses, and the more weight, and all of these factors. Excuse me. So what do you say to people who say, actually, the electrification of big machinery is sort of counterintuitive, because actually it takes so much energy to convert them that the associated emissions are worse than if you had a diesel machine?
I mean, it's clearly so that if we take away the diesel, so to speak, that the machine burn, whatever energy source using, and then looking at the total footprint, it's better to go electric. I mean, to quite big extent. I mean, looking at the complete CO2 footprint, also in the production of batteries and so on. So taking the life cycle assessment approach to it it's clear. I mean, it's better to swap away from burning diesel, so to speak, to using battery electric. And then on your question, I mean, the larger machine, the more batteries are needed, and there I think it's also combinations of solutions. Then I mean, together with maybe grid solutions in combination with some battery source on the machine and so on. So it's up to us to come up with good ideas here to be able to replace diesel.
You've done, I think, something called Electric Worksite, a project that's looked at all of this. Can you explain a little bit more about what you were trying to do with that?
It was trying to prove, I mean, that we could make a whole site CO2 free to biggest extent then. And I think it was quite successful. The hauling solution is both autonomous and also electrified then. We use grid for large excavators, and in that case, hybrids for wheel loaders then. Even though nowadays we also have full electric wheel loaders then. So it was to prove, and of course it was a good learning for us. It's a few years ago now, but it was a very important milestone on the journey to prove both for us and for society that it's possible to do.
I know that you've done a project here in the UK with the Eden project itself down in Cornwall. What were you doing there?
It's one of our or electric small excavators then, both, and then of course it's CO2 free, but also from a noise level and those kind of things, it fits very well into.
Yeah, I was going to say, are they less noisy? Like a car is a less noisy. Is it the same for these big things?
Exactly, and it's quite it's. Our machines are used to be quite noisy, and being around them is a bit disturbing and so on. And then
I've been on a site, the ear defenders and everything.
And it's quite remarkable, and then it's very easy to get used to, actually. So when you're around those electric machines, and it's quite nice, you hear the birds singing.
As you're digging, you can hear the wildlife.
Yeah. Yes.
So one of the things that people will say is, you talked about it already. There are things like e-fuels, which I've covered on the podcast before, these kind of biodiesels, all of these things, hybrid engines. But I suppose the big thing, if you're going to go full electric, is whether you go electric battery or you go fuel cell with hydrogen. And a lot of people say hydrogen is not worth it because of the costs, and it comes from generally at present, it comes mainly from the fossil fuel industry. But other people say actually hydrogen is the key for big things such as shipping, such as trains and diggers like you've got. Where do you see the balance between hydrogen and electric for your construction vehicles?
I think both are very much needed, and it's very much related to the infrastructure as such. To be fully CO2 neutral, we need the green electricity as well then.
Yeah.
And producing green electricity, and to be able to store it, the demand and supply issue, so to speak, with wind and solar. Hydrogen is a solution, of course, to store energy. And then if we can use the hydrogen directly in the machine where that is available, I do see that's very much a solution. And when it is available, in those regions and those places globally, then where it's available, then we should have solutions for our machines to use that. But it's very much depending on the infrastructure. Other places and other locations might be better to use electricity as it is, because maybe hydrogen is not available, or maybe not green hydrogen is available, and so on. So I think it will be different solutions depending a bit on both where the sites are, but also related to the different infrastructure in that country or in that region.
With the fuel cell machines, I assume the only exhaust is water. Is that right? Like a sort of normal hydrogen-powered car?
That's true. It's coming water out of them that you actually can drink. So it's
Have you had some? That's what I was going to say.
Yes, but yes, and fuel cells is of course we're looking into that. I think it's. Still, doing this in high volumes and really commercial, might be a few years down the road, mainly due to the infrastructure on hydrogen. But then also hydrogen is possible to use in the combustion engines, which is another alternative then that is also interesting for sure.
People will always worry about hydrogen and its combustibility, but I suppose it's the same as other fuels, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is. Of course, if something happens, this is dangerous things. And that I think is also one thing with the infrastructure. You need to handle it in the right way and build up solutions for that. And for us, safety is the most important thing. And of course, that's something we also consider and look into to also make the system on board safe when we're working both actually with hydrogen but also with battery electric and so on.
Why does this matter? 1%, you're right, it is big globally, but also people go, well, actually, there's far bigger things we should deal with. Transport, our homes, heating homes. And I know Sweden's very good on its kind of heat efficiency. Construction, does it really matter whether these diggers are polluting or not? Yes, pollution-wise, but it's a lot of investment for machines that aren't used, all the time compared to other things that we should be looking at?
I think it's very important. I think not at least. I mean, we should do our part in this, and then I think if you look at the whole industry as such, it's also important. I mean, construction industry, or I mean, we're also talking about extracting of the raw material where we are
Yes.
involved. I mean, that's even emitting more. Like producing steel and those kind of things, and our machines are in that value chain, so to speak. So I think it's not only to look at that, but also the whole chain and our contribution into that to come to a CO2 neutral environment and building the world we want to live in, so to speak. So for us, it's super important to do our part in this and really addressing this, because it's I mean, I think we all see what's happening with global warming and those kind of things. So I mean, it's important things. And also, I think we talk a lot about the CO2, but also, I mean, the other emissions. I mean, the particles.
Yeah, the particles. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
and so on, and the noise, as we said,
yeah.
is also. So I mean, addressing this, I think it's getting better.
I suppose one of the things that's very interesting, if you look at where we're going, we will be, I mean, some people are saying we shouldn't be, but we will be extracting more rare earth materials, more silicon, more elements for, cadmium, nickel, beryllium, all of these things that go into the electrical supply chain for everything that as we start to build batteries and stuff. And I think you said earlier, you also make the machines that do that kind of digging or excavating at the actual site, the mines and things like that. So is this another area you think that what you're trying to do by decarbonising your fleet can help?
I do believe so, and I mean, also in the bigger picture, it's not only about when we operate the machine; it's also when we build them. So I mean, fossil-free steel, for example, is something that we use also to reduce. I mean, from our whole supply chain, then also the CO2 emission. But then I think also the circularity and recycling will be super important moving forward. Talking about batteries, for example. I mean,
I was going to say that. Yeah,
to reuse a lot. Of course, in the beginning, the material is very much needed, but in the long run, I mean, when this get going, then of course it should be circular and reusing the material and so on to build new batteries and moving forward.
Is that what you're planning to do? So once your batteries have been used on your diggers and they've gone through the...
Absolutely. Right. I mean, there it's I'm sure there will be regulations coming, but not only due to the regulations, but also because it's important for our for the globe. So that's definitely high on our agenda.
Before we end, I think one of the things people have, and please don't see this as a stereotype, but it is a bit of a stereotype. Everyone thinks the Swedes are very kind of, they love nature, they're into the planet, and this is a kind of, very eco kind of country. Now, that's not necessarily the truth, but do you believe that this kind of drive to decarbonise things like big, heavy plant machinery, is that something that's kind of part of what Volvo's about because of where you're from?
No, I mean, I don't think it's only because of that. Of course, it might. I'm being a Swede myself. It's hard to judge maybe, but I think it's always been high on our agenda,
right?
And we think it's important, as you say. But then I think also, I mean, it's a common business sense as well. I mean, it's we are moving in this direction, and we have to do it. And I think there are a lot of business opportunities in this moving forward. So it's not only because of the purpose like that, but of course I think it's important that we do our part and take lead where we can, because it's important for the globe. That's
Will we ever get a zero emission construction site?
I believe so.
Do you really?
Yeah. But I mean, of course, in the if we're talking about net zero and so on, yeah, we can reach that, but it will take a while. And but I think the small steps here is super important. I mean, driving this in the right direction. It's for me, it's more about doing what you can. And then I mean the end game, of course, is that it should be like that. But and then it will look different in different parts of the world and all of that. But doing our part into this is important to me, and what's driving me in this. And also, it's being an engineer. It's fun stuff. It's new things and so on. So it's good in many ways in my view, and gives me energy, and also our team and so on. So it's good.
And I hear you've been at Volvo for a long time. Is that right?
That's true. I've been in Volvo for 32 years. So my whole career has been within Volvo and in construction equipment.
And you've seen that change from when you began in the 90s to where you are now. Have you
Absolutely.
seen that change to try and decarbonize everything?
Yes, and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, when you see the new things coming and taking on the new challenges or the new opportunities, and also using technology to drive that, that's the where I get energy, so to speak. That's what I like.
Excellent. Well, there you go. I mean, still going after 30 odd years must be good. Must be a good canteen, Mats. That's the one thing that always stops people staying where they are. The canteen's good or bad. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for explaining. I think it's one of those areas that probably doesn't get as much publicity as it should do, but it is an important thing. And your aim is, as you said, a third of your fleet by the end of this decade to be low emission or zero emission, correct?
Absolutely.
Well, I wish you all the best with that. Max Goldberg, thanks for joining us on the Net Hero podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me.
No problems. And what do you think about that? Tell us, drop us a line on social media, subscribe to this YouTube channel or subscribe to the podcast. I think it's a big story. I think it's one to look at. Tell me what your thoughts are, or email us if you want to be on the Net Hero podcast, nethero@futurenetzero.com. And don't forget to check out the Big Zero Show and Future Net Zero if you want to find out more about cutting emissions.
You've just heard the Net Hero podcast from FutureNetZero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. FutureNetZero.com. Better business, better planet.